Hello and welcome to our first ever show of Warrior Surfer, where today we're going to have a close-up look at Sonic Adventures, both in all 5 platforms it was released on: the PlayStation 3, the Xbox 360, the PC version, the GameCube version, and of course the original Dreamcast version. Let's take a look. Sonic Adventure is a game released back in the launch of the Dreamcast in 1999 and has since been rebranded a number of different times on a number of different platforms, starting of which on the GameCube, which rebranded itself as Sonic Adventure DX with a couple of extra little bits of content, but hardly anything to write home about. We then had the PC version, followed much later on, years and years later, with the revamped HD PS3 and Xbox 360 versions. As I said, these were also the DX version upgrade that was possible to buy through both the Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 3 version. Had the option of just having the original Sega Dreamcast version of Sonic Adventure with an upgrade expansion pack for an additional £3. Being one of the people who actually purchased a revamped copy of the HD version of Sonic Adventure, I was quite disappointed with the DX copy, as the extra benefits that it seemed to highlight on there hardly ever seemed to be visible when playing the real game. The world of Sonic can be hard to follow at the best of times. Just keep in mind that Robotnik, or Eggman as he's now called in the game, is a baddie, and you must defeat him with the Chaos Emeralds. These you find at the end of each level, some hidden away as well. Eggman now has a companion with him in this new adventure, a water-like beast that can change form and makes up a lot of the boss battles that you will encounter within the game. As I said, you play as 5 different characters: Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, Amy, Big, and E102Y. One aspect of the game that I still don't fully grasp is the Chow Garden. Possibly this Tamagotchi style minigame was actually received better in that homeland of Asia, where all of that did come from, back in the Dreamcast heydays. The controls are very much similar to the old 2-style version of the Sonic games, with jump and of course the Sonic spin being the most predominantly used controls that you have in the game. Very much a pick up and play, with only those 2 buttons needing to be pressed really. As you progress through the game, especially with Sonic, you do get extra abilities, such as running ultra fast, enabling you to get to areas you can't necessarily get to in the beginning of the game, and you do need this for progression. But for the most part, you're just speeding through the levels, killing things as you go along, trying to reach the end of the level and obtain a form of Chaos Emerald, or as many rings as possible. One character that always stood out in my mind as being a bit of an oddball in the game is character Big. His story is very short in no matter what version of the game I've played, and he doesn't appear to really do much apart from jump and fish. The controls when trying to fish with Big is quite a difficult one, especially on the Dreamcast controller, due to the thumbstick not being as tactile as it maybe should be, whereas the PlayStation 3 and mainly the Xbox version seem to have a better thumbstick, so adjustment is easier, so you don't lose your fish so easily in those stages. Knuckles' character is probably the most true to the original games, literally jumping and flying to platforms, but in his case you're actually actively searching for smaller emeralds in order to dig up or find or destroy certain enemies to release them. There tends to be 3 in each stage, but his controls are probably the best out of all 5 characters, with even the Dreamcast version being having the thumbstick is not really hindering your capability to fly at all. And then we move on to Amy, probably the most boring character out of all the games, even at the second one, should we review that later. She doesn't really improve much, just going around with this massive hammer, destroying enemies as she goes. Can only really jump, can't go very fast. Control system on her is terrible. You seem to be able to spin around in circles, sometimes not hitting enemies. It doesn't matter what console or what machine I've played it on, she plays the same on each one. And of course Sonic's trusty companion, Tails, his control system when flying is sketchy, sometimes with the camera movements on every machine that I've played it on. Again, it's very hard to judge sometimes if the computer system will let you fly in certain areas. It looks like a very open world, but sometimes Tails will find out that it's not so open if you get far, and you will fly in certain areas and it won't let you go there, and it's just a big headache. Which is sad because it leads you to mainly stick into the platforming side of it and not flying too much, because you're afraid of dying and falling off the edge. Okay, so my roundup of the game is broken down like this. The good aspects of Sonic Adventures is, well, hey, it's Sonic, so everyone loves Sonic, especially if you're an old Sega fan. Sonic is traditionally associated with them, and it's a nice colourful representation of some of the aspects of the Dreamcast, especially, that made it a very popular machine at the time, but sadly only for a short while. The split storyline is a mixed bag of tricks, so I guess most of all it's a positive thing. You can play as several different characters. You haven't just got to solidly play as Sonic, so it does make it a bit more open. Mainly to the newer versions of the game with the 360 and the PS3 versions, the textures and the quality of the graphics seem to have been tweaked somewhat, making it a lot more colourful to play, which, you know, going from the Dreamcast to the PlayStation 3 version, you can really tell the differences. The only sad thing that I'd say on that note is that why didn't Sega make a widescreen version of the game? They've gone to all that effort to polish it up, but never made it widescreen. I don't know the technicality or different issues why that isn't possible, but it's just sad. That would have been a nice finish to the game. I haven't mentioned it much, but the GameCube version, or the ported version of the game, it's not actually a bad one. Its graphics are very, very similar to the Dreamcast, doesn't seem to have been tweaked much, but the gameplay is pretty much there. There isn't really anything missing, and you've got the extra little bits of content, which, as I said, is good in some aspects, but especially if you're paying for the extra content online, you'd expect a bit more. My £3 really didn't seem to go that far. I never really noticed the extra content in the game. The PC version of the game does enable you to play, if you've got the correct setup. I believe I had it on XP at the time. It was fine to run in a high resolution, so you got some really good graphics out of that, but they did look a little bit washed out, so probably I'm getting the best replica of the Dreamcast version to any other ported console. However, it's obviously lacking the joystick functionality. You could, from what I remember, I did buy a joystick. This was before the days when the Xbox 360 joystick could be used on a computer, and it did seem to work relatively well, but again had the clunky controls, and also the problems with regards to the camera angling of the camera. Okay, some bad points about the game. I'm a big fan of most of the Sonic games out there, and it was a bit of a shame that extra time wasn't spent on just polishing the Dreamcast version up, especially when it got released. Notable things would be the controls of the game are a bit clunky on the Dreamcast, but as I later said, this is improved on the newer updated versions. However, it seems to have been lost a bit in the world that is the downloadable content out there. There's so many other games that have replicated and made a better job of it, to be honest, nowadays, which is a shame. I don't understand the point in having this DX version, especially on the Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 3 versions. As I said, it made no notable difference to my gameplay. Those extra tiny bits of content that it seemed to add, nowhere near worth the money that you would pay. So it'd be my advice, if anyone considering to rebuy the game again, definitely probably don't bother with that. One thing that everyone mentions in reviews is the music. I find it quite important in a game, especially into a lot of my surround sound system, and I think that music in games and sound effects are very important. Again, this was lacking quite a lot. It seems as if Sega went down just a very safe path in order to get just a game out there with a Sonic title on it. The ring sounds similar to what you would have heard, back in the day of the 2D versions. But with regards to this new 3D version, I would have liked to have heard less of the cheesy sounds and, more of us taking it seriously. This is a bit unusual, but I'm going to split these up into two ranking stages. We've got the Xbox and the PlayStation 3 version. Due to them being revamped, polished up a bit, I'm going to give that one 7 out of 10, which is a mediocre score, but as I said, some of the points that they could have pushed it that extra mile would have made me, crank it up to like a 9 or maybe even a 10. And the PC, the Dreamcast and the GameCube version, I'm going to give a 8 out of 10. Mainly because at that stage, at that time, games of that caliber were only just coming out. So some of the things were experimental. Others, like as I said, with sound and that, I think they could have pushed a bit further and could have got some better results. But no, 8 out of 10, so a safe bet. Okay, well that's it from me. I hope you enjoyed our different versions of the Sonic Adventure game, my review of some of the aspects, and if you want to contact us, then by all means do write some notes on the bottom of the video blog there, or alternatively you can write an email to us as well. That link you'll find on the YouTube site. Thanks a lot.